What is up, sports fans, and welcome back to another episode of Pez's Picks. I'm Jeff Hartman, not Pez, not the man with the picks. That's the guy that's next to me on the screen in case you're watching on YouTube. Pez, welcome back. How's it going?
Not bad, Jeff. Not bad. We're getting dialed in full here in the Major League Baseball playoffs, football, NFL. We had our best week. When you go 3-1, Jeff, you celebrate. Unfortunately, the color I'm wearing. I don't know what happened, Jeff. I don't know. We looked really good, and then we looked really bad. I think we should have played Tampa. And that's you talk about every handicapper's got a team or two, and you try to stay away from playing for them against them, Jeff. But yeah, the bird's not good. But NFL, it's tricky. It's tricky, Jeff. We've got another Flacco sighting.
Yep.
Why'd they let this guy go, Jeff? Right? What's going on here? This guy's awesome, right? Look at
He's winning
Cleveland.
games.
I'm
Winning
pretty
games.
I talked to somebody that they're pretty sure Deshaun Watson's contract's fully guaranteed. I believe.
Yep, it is
the only one ever. Correct, right? So.
yeah, I mean Dax is guaranteed up to the last $9 million is not, so it's not fully guaranteed. There's $9 million that would be missed.
And we got some trade rumors with those Steelers, huh?
Yeah.
Little Las Vegas Raiders trade going on here. Let's see.
Potential. Devontae Adams is supposedly on the move as of this being recorded. He is still a member of the Raiders, so we'll see what happens there. But that could change things for teams like the Jets, teams like the Steelers, teams like the Saints that are all supposedly interested in potentially trading for Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams is a really good player. So we'll see.
We'll see. I mean, that'll jump into our place, Jeff. We hope he moves because we're not going to take the Raiders too often. I don't know what's going on out there.
All right, so let's get the show on the road with updating our records. So you mentioned NCAA last week was rough. We'll talk about that in a second, but we're overall.
Oh, Jeff, whoa, rough. 2 and 3 is not rough, Jeff. Let's, true gambler. Hey. 2 and 3, we're surviving. If your bad weeks are even or one below than in college football, we're not happy, Jeff. But rough is 0 and 4. 0 and 4 happens, Jeff. Everybody should know this. There ain't no gambler in the world that's winning every week, and I love the idea that we got the pressure is survival, Jeff. So 2 and 3, let's clear. That's below average. Let's keep it there.
Okay. NFL though, winning record 10-8 on the season, and
loving it.
On top of the NFL, we had one MLB postseason play, the Detroit Tigers. As of this being recorded, we have a play that's live, the Kansas City Royals versus the Baltimore Orioles, but that game is not concluded. But 1-0 after a 59% win percentage in the regular season of Major League Baseball. But Pez, before we talk about baseball and updating our last week win and loss totals for NCAA, we've decided, last 2 weeks we did 2 shows a week, and we talked and we decided to move back to 1 a week. And one of the main reasons why was based on the fact that lines change so much, and the way the lines shift can dictate whether you take a game or not. And I just felt that it wasn't fair, us recording earlier in the week, trying to give people, even if they were leans, especially when by the end of the week, Friday, with injury reports out and things like that become public, maybe we're not so keen on a particular matchup. What did you want to talk about in terms of going back to the Wednesday recording? This will be live on Thursday morning, and having a little bit more information.
So, and anyone that's been gambling a lot, Jeff, knows this. Tuesday, Wednesday, you start looking at the newspaper in the old days, and you circle some things, and you start doing some research. But line shifts sometimes kind of give you an angle on what the casinos and what the books are looking at, and that's going to adjust your decision a little bit at times. If you're betting a team laying 2.5 and that jumps to 4, that's a big change. So, what we try to do is on the podcast, we're going to give information on games we think we're taking. But our official picks will always be on Instagram, and those videos are what we count as our official plays of the day. Sometimes they come out a day ahead of time. So, and we were proud last week. We laid off some games, Jeff. We could have been way worse last week, and I talked about it with a bunch of people that are, in the biz, and it was a carnage week for college football. College football, this might be the toughest year we've ever had, and we ever will have. I think they figure out this NIL, Jeff. I watched Saban talking about it, and it's the Wild West out there. Every state has different rules about how much they're paying these dudes. Every state's got different rules about who can manage them, who can represent them, UNLV is a perfect situation. The quarterback's promised 100 G's and didn't come, and he walked. So, and I think this is going to we have to have a resolution after the season. And, there's been so much transferring of top players and second-tier players that I think it's going to take a little bit while to get some consistent footing. We're one below 500. We're thrilled about that, to be honest with you, Jeff. We haven't had a losing season in a year. NFL, college football last year, we were in the 60s, high 60s. NFL, I believe. Playoffs, we crushed it. NCAA tournament, NBA. So we're happy, Jeff. And 59% in baseball. That I was talking about with our resident expert he's a Bob Sacamano, Jeff, the sling man. The guy can get you anything. I'm going to the Phillies Saturday. He's going to be there too. Jeff, I think he told me he came off a truck. I got a brand new Phillies hoodie, $20, Jeff. I don't know where this guy comes from, Bob Sacamano. He sells rat hats at the park too. So 59%. He said, you were that good? Sling man's a daily operator in the sports handicapping world, and I think he was far below 59. So, it's a season. We're not asking people to put all these bets in and put maximum amounts, Jeff. So this is fun. Let's remind everybody that you shouldn't be betting your mortgage or pink slip for your kid's college education. So, I'm confident about this year. I think we were doing worse 4 weeks in last year, Jeff. I think we're 4 or 5 games below 500 in college, and it takes a little while to figure it out. But Georgia, Alabama, Jeff, what a game, right? I mean, that's college football right there. And, that's 2 teams you can count on a little bit.
Let's not jump the gun talking about last week's picks. There are some picks that were at the very end of the podcast I do want to touch on before we dive into NCAA last week in the NFL, one of which was that you did take the San Diego Padres to win the World Series. At the time was plus 1,300 odds. I'm sure it's still around there, at least over plus 1,000. We'll check on that. Yeah. Also, though, the President's Cup concluded. You had the final score prediction of US 16.5 to International 13.5 at plus 900 odds. US ends up winning 18.5 to 11.5. But man, did you watch any of that President's Cup?
Jeff, I don't know what's going on in the world here. I mean, everyone needs to calm down, Jeff. These guys are ready to fight over.
Yes, bring it on. That's what this needs.
So much anger in these situations. I think baseball's figured it out, Jeff. I didn't like watching that President's Cup. It just seemed, you can get pumped up, but there's cursing and there's too much celebrating.
They never cursed. That was completely fabricated by Tom Kim, just so you know.
Baseball, Jeff, these guys do things that somebody literally murdered them about 15 years ago in baseball. They would have come off the bench and attacked them. I don't know. Maybe we need to go to that to golf. We need to go to Caddyshack 2 where there's no rules. Let these guys take their shirts off, go nuts, Jeff. I don't know. The Americans, and just too much talent on that. So we hit that bet. We took them in, I think it was plus
minus 250 overall, US to win.
I think
but we did not hit the score.
We did 2 totals or final scores. I think we put out plus or 17 too. So 18.5. The internationals, they kind of gave up on Sunday, Jeff.
Well, but how crazy was it though, Pez? The US comes out 5-0 after Thursday. You're thinking it's over. Internationals sweep on Friday to make it 5-5, and now all of a sudden the weekend is intriguing. Saturday was the day where the U.S. just kind of dominated, and then everything else just took place.
Good players on an international team. I mean, the Asian players on the tour right now are just fantastic. They've got the right mindset. They're out there having fun. They're not afraid of anybody either, Jeff. So I love the Korean delegation and Kim and An, and those guys are good for the PGA. They're badass dudes. And they've got great hands. They remind me of a little bit older school PGA golfers. They all got great short games. They've got great game. Maybe 2-3 players short the internationals. But Adam Scott, Jeff, guy's still hitting the ball pretty sweet.
Yeah, he is.
That dude. I mean, he's something. How about Anthony Kim, Jeff? Complaining he wasn't on the team or so. What's this chirping going on with this guy? I mean,
forget that guy. Forget those guys. How about Keegan Bradley, the Ryder Cup captain? Having some huge moments in the President's Cup, that's going to pay dividends next year at the Ryder Cup. I'm telling you.
He keeps playing that way. He might be on that team, right? I mean,
could be a playing captain. It's happened before.
Putting was great. That course was weird. I mean, it played a little bit more winter conditions. I think that hurt the Americans on Friday. It was cold out there.
Yeah, but neither here nor there. President's Cup, wanted to mention it. If you want to hear more about my takes on that, check out my Fairways and Dreams podcast. Fairways, the and Symbol Dreams did an entire episode all on that, the storylines, the drama. I liked the tournament, thought it was great. But let's talk about the mainstream sports. I wouldn't include golf into that. And let's talk about the NCAA. So again, 9-10 overall. Last week, 2-3. We got some winners and we had some disappointments. So, Pez, we'll go through the winnings games first. Georgia, Alabama, and then Rutgers over Washington. What are your takeaways on those two games?
I mean, that Alabama is just. I mean, both teams playing a playing. I think Alabama kind of let the pedal off the gas a little bit. Alabama is unbelievable, Jeff. That 17-year-old receiver. I can't think of his name right now. But who? 17 years old. This kid's lighting up. This. That had. I wonder how many pro level or NFL future players are on that field. I mean, that both teams great. Jalen Milroe, I don't know. He's got to be a front runner for the Heisman right now. That guy's awesome. And I remember we talked a lot about him last year. I really liked him, but he kind of seemed a little. He wasn't polished yet, or he turned the ball over a little bit. This Kalen DeBoer, this coach Jeff. I don't know where'd this guy come from. He's a quarterback whisperer. This guy. I hope he stays in college. We need a guy like that building quarterbacks, get in the league. If we note this year, not many of those early draft picks are playing too well. So great game. Could be the national championship. I don't know how things are going to work out with that tournament, but two amazing teams, Jeff. Fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, Taylor Halves, and it almost was a huge upset. Georgia should not be disappointed outside of the fact that they fell behind so much or so early. But then you also had Rutgers and Washington. You liked the Scarlet Knights there. Rutgers wins.
Great. I mean, great win for Rutgers. That game was, a little bit closer than we had hoped at times. But I mean, Rutgers, tough team, tough defense, Jeff. And I don't know how much we can count on them going forward, but that team, 21-18. I mean, to pull that out, great running game. I mean, we'll have to keep watching them, Jeff. And the old coach is back. Guy was I think he's still the highest paid New Jersey employee, runs a really classy organization, and I'm happy for the New Brunswick. I'm a Rutgers graduate, Jeff. I did some coaching up there too. When I was up there, Jeff, I almost went out for the team. The seventh string a cornerback on the Rutgers Scarlet Knights went down for injury. They had open tryouts before Texas played. Matthew McConaughey came. I thought about trying out, Jeff. I was 24. I think I could have made the team. They had a guy end up playing who had never played football as a rugby guy. So we've come a long way at the Scarlet Knights in football, and I'm happy for that. Are you?
All right, perfect. Now, let's also take a look at our losses because you got to do that too. Utah, Arizona. You took Utah, and they were giving double-digit points. I don't know what the final spread was. We had it at -12 last week, early in the week, and they do not cover. So what's your takeaway on this game?
The wife burned me, Jeff, and I think she found out about the pick. And I maybe we kind of with Utah, they end up losing that game outright. In the quarterback situation in Utah, maybe we underestimated how important the starter was. We got a backup playing out there, and Arizona was better than they've looked the last couple games. So tough night for the quarterback. 2 picks for Wilson. He had played great up till then, but the starter, I'm not sure. Cameron Rising, he had a hand injury, he got a little cheap shot at early. So I don't know. We're going to have to take a look at that when he comes back, Jeff. But Utah, I'm pulling for him. I think that defense is great. I think they are a top 12 team, but we got to wait and see what they do in the coming weeks.
All right, another game was actually a winner, but it didn't pull through in terms of the gigantic spread that they had, and that was Texas over Mississippi State. Texas was at the time -37. They win the game, but it just felt like they just took their foot off the gas and were just happy with the win.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the score, they struggle to get started in that game, Jeff. And I mean, the numbers are still there. It's tough to judge a team that wins 35-13, but Manning, I think they kind of had him in a little more controlled situation. They didn't want him throwing picks. You don't want a guy coming in the second game. He threw a couple in the first outing, so they appeared to be a little bored to me, Jeff. Which you're going to run into. We're looking for traction in these college football teams, and Alabama's one that we found you can count on. We're starting to look a little bit more at Oregon, but even Georgia. I mean, they barely survived with Kentucky 2 weeks ago. So I'm not sure what the situation is. Is it like we talked about earlier? Our team's going to kind of lay off a little bit, knowing they're just getting in the tournament, and that this is a touch and go year, especially with the NIL stuff. So, unfortunately, 2 more scores, maybe we win that game. But yeah,
Yeah.
it happens, Jeff. It happens.
That thought process has to be interesting from a gambling perspective. These spreads are huge, but with a 12-team playoff, it used to be that you didn't just have to win, you had to win convincingly because you had to prove your dominance to get into the playoff, which is just 4 teams. Now it's 12. I feel like there's a little leeway. If a team loses a game, not the end of the world. They can still come back. If they're winning and they're going to have a perfect record, okay, they're looking at it. How bad do we need to beat these guys? I could see them starting to unload their bench. I think that might play a role in this.
It's possible, Jeff, but and that, having been around college sports a little bit, coaching a little bit, there there's a different outlook in these games where you're looking every play and every minute. And I know in college football, it's way more. I did some soccer stuff. They're analyzing everything, and everybody knows you're going to be sitting, the next day or 2 days. You're going over tape of everything. So any player, any coach taking time off, they're getting rated on this stuff on a daily basis. And trust me, Jeff, I played a little soccer. When you're watching tape and you have a bad game, it is a brutal. I mean, they ride you. So I feel like teams aren't going to cut down on scoring points. I think strategy and game plan could change a little bit, but you give these guys opportunities to light it up. I still think they're going to, and I wonder, are they working on different parts of their game a little bit more than they used to? Because if they get chances to score, especially Texas, I mean, they should have blown that team out. But, we're in the conference play a little bit too. So there's probably a little adjustment period needed. Better teams make halftime adjustments, right? So Texas, great halftime adjustments. Georgia, I mean, they snuck up on Alabama a little back. So, yeah, when I look at a team kind of getting better in the second half, we keep that in the back of our head, and that's a sign of good coaching too.
And the last game that we played last week was Boston College versus Western Kentucky. BC wins the game, but they don't cover. And so that's how we ended up with a 2-3 record last week.
And it probably a mistake looking back, Jeff. I talked to our friend Action Man, and he reminded me, we took this game partly. BC starting quarterback was out. But Boston College quietly, Jeff, might have the best offensive line in college football. They have an enormous offensive line. They've got an NFL coach. So, I think they were down 17-7 at halftime. So 14 big points in the second half. With the backup quarterback situation, maybe this kid got a little more comfortable throughout the game. They ended up pounding the ball and running it, and it's going to happen. All these kids, I hate to say it now, they're all getting paid now, Jeff. So these guys all are motivated at a different level. Used to be if you played at Western Kentucky, you're probably a little bit, like felt a little. You go to a big school, you feel a little crappy, Jeff. There's probably guys in there making 50 G's right from Western Kentucky. So at this point, I think we have to really take a different look at college football. And I've been worried this year, Jeff. It's been very difficult. Things are constantly moving, and I think we have to change kind of the algorithm in terms of college football. And you can't disrespect teams like we used to anymore. I don't think that's always going to be the case when you're playing a top 5 team, but I think there's going to be a lot more competition all over the country, and these conference changes, coaching changes, and big money for coaches in college now at all levels, right? So, BC's paying big bucks. So I think this is kind of a learning period for college, and we're getting back on that winning streak soon, Jeff. I feel good this week.
Let's start our picks for this week in the NCAA. Well, I'm going to have you read them off. You tell me who's home, who's away, what the spread is, and who's your pick. Go ahead.
So Friday Night Football, Jeff, 9:00. We've got Syracuse at UNLV. I mean, everybody knows UNLV quarterback situation. The kid, he hit the road, Jeff. I think he was transferred from Holy Cross. They promised him $100,000. A handshake deal. Who knows? I can't remember his name. He's an old defensive back in the NFL, I believe, was his agent. Different laws. Saban talked about it, right? It's insane, Jeff. So he left. He's protecting his kind of eligibility 3 games in. Turns out, Jeff, Haj Malik Williams was their backup. I mean, the guy was at a time their starter. He transferred in from Campbell. I don't even know where that is, Jeff, but the guys had great numbers so far. At times in college football, I can imagine you want to be rallying behind this guy. This dude abandoned the team, and that's going to piss guys off. Entered into the top 25, I think, first time ever, right, Jeff? UNLV is number 25 in the country. The line's going up a little bit, and that's one thing we're going to keep watching. If we don't take this game on Friday, that's due to this line. It started at 4. It's at 6.5. But we love this game this week. And
So
Syracuse
UNLV is giving 6.5.
UNLV given 6.5, and we love that. Syracuse oddly has had 3 home games in a row, I believe. And that I've been to Syracuse once, Jeff. It's a horrible place. It's this kind of dark dome. It feels like winter year round. First road game, going to UNLV, you're in the Vegas lights. And I don't know if you remember, Jeff, last year, I bashed this guy all year. I felt bad. I think it's why Ohio State dumped him. Kyle McCord, he was an Ohio State starter last year. He's gone, Jeff. They told him probably cost him a national championship. That team was stacked. So not a horrible quarterback. At Syracuse, he's probably their best recruit they had in a long time. But I think UNLV and their defense, it's going to be too much for them. Ball hawk team, UNLV. Expect turnovers from McCord, and that's what happened to him last year in Ohio State. And I think Syracuse comes back down to earth a little bit. Love UNLV minus 6.5. Actually, it's dropped. It might drop back to 6. Then we really love it, Jeff.
All right. What else you got?
We've got Tennessee at Arkansas, Jeff. So, at times, Arkansas getting 13.5. We're taking Arkansas. They play 5 top 25 teams right now, Jeff, on their schedule. Unbelievably hard record, or a hard schedule. They've kept it close. Oklahoma State, at the time, they were 16. They lost in double overtime. Texas A&M lost by 4 points. Now they got Tennessee. And after this, they got LSU, Jeff. So this isn't a game that they're taking off. When you look at an Arkansas, that's a team that knows we are battling every week. We're playing ranked teams almost every week. So it's not like, hey, we had a good week last week. They know they're in a dogfight. I like this team a lot. I like it at home. And that line's fishy, Jeff. When you've got Tennessee, only laying 13.5, 4-0 Tennessee, that offense is smoking right now. Going up against a 3-2 team, and it's 13.5, that tells us a lot. That tells us Vegas knows something. That line's held steady. So, Vegas, they're not giving people gifts. I think this game, Arkansas, a little bit of a trap game. I love them. That's a tough place to play. I expect it to be hot and humid, and, it could be some rain. Saturday, 7:30, big game. I love Arkansas in this situation.
All right. How many other plays do we have?
We've got one more college. We've got Iowa at Ohio State. Jeff, I think, and I talked to KT Smith of the call sheet, our resident X's and O's guy. I said, Coach, I just talked to him today. Iowa, Ohio State laying 20. He said, quote, way too fast for Iowa. The Buckeyes are going to smoke this team. In Ohio State, we've got new coaching staff. We've got new players. I think this is time. Some teams start a little slow and they start to build. I think we're going to see Ohio State come out big. And I think 20 points is a pretty decent spread going up against Iowa, who's not that good this year. And they're not going to have anywhere near the athleticism out there. So we're back to home teams too, Jeff. We're reminding ourselves home teams win more than away teams. So 3 home teams. We like our chances in this situation. And, people should keep listening. If we have a big line movement, we'll call that off. And, we'll keep looking, Jeff. We're punching numbers. We're punching data. Weather is always a big determinant, too. You get some rain. Some guys aren't good in it. Some guys are. So, as of now, those 3, and it could stay that way, too.
All right. So let's transition to the National Football League. Last week, 3-1. We'll talk about those games briefly. The lone loss was the Pittsburgh Steelers not winning it on the road against the Indianapolis Colts. They lose 27-24. It was a tough, weird game at the time.
Sure was.
Defense did not show up the way we all thought they would. And you mentioned it at the beginning of the show. Joe Flacco returns. I'm a Steeler fan. Call me a homer. That's fine. I like the Steelers' odds with Anthony Richardson playing 4 quarters compared to Joe Flacco. When Joe Flacco came in, I said to myself that the odds of the Steelers coming back just went down.
Jeff, you're reading our mind, and we got Flacco'd, right, Jeff? This guy, who is this Flacco? He's better than he ever was in Baltimore. I mean, even better than he won the Super Bowl. And I've been talking about with some people. Maybe the NFL right now it favors a veteran quarterback. We're used to watching these young guys, and the games moving fast. I mean, what's Flacco? 15-year veteran. I mean, he's seen it all, right? So Pittsburgh prepared for one guy. Then they get a pocket passer who can read a defense. I'm sure he's faced that Pittsburgh defense before, right? He played him a ton. So huge disadvantage for us, Jeff. I was so pissed off when that happened. Who knows? Did Richardson come back in the game and then leave? I mean, maybe they felt something, Jeff. They said, "Okay, come back over here," and they felt like Flacco was a better quarterback. I don't know, but I still love the Steelers. I think Steelers. Maybe they get that receiver, Jeff. I mean, I'm not joking in this situation. We're talking potential Super Bowl or challenging KC. I think. I love their game. I love how they're playing. And the Colts, Indianapolis, is a horrible place to play, Jeff. I've been to that city. It's a downer. You drive up to that city, you just feel bad for it, right? And, it ain't like you want to play Baltimore, and it's too like these poor guys in this poor city. Jeff, they put chili on top of spaghetti in this town. I don't know what that is.
Weird.
It's disgusting,
That's weird.
Jeff. Yeah. So we'll take the L on that one, and
All right.
I'm not blaming them.
All right, so let's go to our other games that we won. We win the Detroit-Seattle Monday night game. We win Tennessee over Miami, another Monday night game. Those two, the Miami game was just tough to watch. And then Cincinnati over Carolina, and they cover as well. Those were three pretty bad games in terms of viewership. Detroit, Seattle might have been the most entertaining. What was your takeaway on the 3 wins?
Seattle, Jeff, I think is a game or two above 500 team, right? And I like the way they play. Metcalf's great, of course, and Geno's serviceable. But I think when you play an elite team with elite talent, Detroit Lions, I mean they're starting to get in their rhythm. They're back leading the league and covering spreads too, Jeff. At home, we love that team. Goff, great game. They're measured. I think the defense is better. With Cincinnati, that team had to win, Jeff. I mean, there were whispers of Super Bowl that this team's back, and I'm not a huge Joe Burrow guy, but thankfully for us, they pulled that out, and at the end of the day, we're still going to base a lot on quarterback, home field. We got back into that situation, and that going forward, we now have more data too, Jeff. You get 4 or 5 weeks of data. That's what you can lean on. 2-3 weeks, you're looking at it. They might have had a donkey opponent or something. So once you get to 4 to 5 weeks, we're getting dialed in on strength and weaknesses and away versus home situations, and that's important when you're putting numbers into this algorithm. And last week we felt great about everything. We not even a close one, Jeff. Right? Miami felt bad for that Hundley. He was a Baltimore guy, right? He had some decent years in there, and
he did.
It seems to me, and that I don't know if you watch it, Jeff. They focused on poor Tua. They talked about that guy for about 10 minutes, and they had the camera on him, and talked about how it's his decision. I'm saying, leave the guy alone, right? Leave him alone. Focus on the game, and it felt like Miami kind of is exhaling on the season, right? And that's Coach McDaniel's fault. So we'll see if they can turn it around. That's a dangerous team. At any point, you got some studs on that team, and you're going to have to pick your chances against them, I think.
All right, so we had 3 college plays, 3 NFL plays as of right now. Why don't you lead us through the picks for this week?
So first, Jeff, and after you get your ass kicked by somebody, you got to respect them a little bit. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that team, of course, the Eagles were a little bit undermanned, but they looked like the team they've looked in every game except the one we took them on last week. So balanced, and I heard Tom Brady talking about this, Jeff. Tampa and New Orleans, they're out there to fight you. They play bully ball. They kind of play a style similar to a Ravens-Steelers kind of game, and you're beat up after those games. I mean, you're physically beat up. They're there to muscle you, and I don't think the Falcons, Jeff. We're taking Tampa in Atlanta Thursday night. Falcons are laying 1.5, and this is one of these things, Jeff. Sometimes I look at it and go, what am I missing here? I am not a huge Kirk Cousins fan, as you know. I think he's hearing footsteps, right? 4 TDs to 4 picks already. The team hasn't looked too hot. They've had spurts where they did. He just seems like he's checking out, right? He's like, all right, just let the kid play. I love Tampa in this situation. Short week coming in, really tough team to play, and if they get on Cousins, it's going to be Tampa night. And I think the offense is better than our offense, and I think Tampa's defense is better than their defense. So getting 1.5, I love it, Jeff. We're all over this one.
All right, so we got Thursday night football, Tampa Bay getting 1.5. Well, let's go to the next pick. Who you got?
So we've got the Ravens at the Bengals, Jeff. Minus 2.5. Bengals they had a serviceable win for us. We got the W, but at the end of the day, the Ravens are a better team than the Bengals on both sides of the ball. I'll take the quarterback over their quarterback. I'll take the running back over their running back. Defensively, I don't think there's an argument here. I think 2.5 is generous. looked last week like that offense started finding its feet. The balance between Lamar and Henry getting it. Love them this week. Love them in this situation. I still think the Ravens are 11 or 12 win team possibly. So all over the Ravens. Laying 2.5 on the road. Only thing we don't like about it, but sometimes you got to be a road gamer.
Okay, and last pick.
Actually, I forgot, Jeff, too. Lamar 8-2 against the Bengals in his career.
Yeah, he has.
We gotta love that.
Good record.
Joe Burrow 3-4 against the Ravens. So we've got a lot of data behind this one. This next game, Jeff, a little bit more of a field game. It was a very difficult card this week, so we're looking for any advantage we can. We're taking less games this week. We've got 4 teams on bye. So Buffalo at Houston. Houston getting a point, maybe 1.5 right now. When we look at this game, I love Josh Allen, Jeff. Josh Allen's won us a ton of money, and situationally, I think he's one of the better quarterbacks in the last decade. I think that guy at some point deserves a Super Bowl. I just don't think this is their year. When you look at the numbers, it's been Josh Allen and all Josh Allen, right? I mean, he's got James Cook. His receivers are not good, Jeff. And I think after a few weeks of tape, Josh Allen's got it. He's got to lay off the gas a little bit. 7 TDs and no picks. I think on the road, 3-1. I think they've overachieved a little bit. Houston at home. This team's got to at some point start showing us a little bit of what we thought they would be. Stroud and Mixon, and I think this situation, Houston's poised for a nice solid win at home, getting a 1.5. Actually, I should say, right? Houston getting a 1.5. So. Love this game Sunday, 1:00, all over this one. CJ Stroud's week.
All right, so I want to finish this up by just saying to everyone out there listening or watching on YouTube, make sure you follow Pez's picks on both Twitter and X and on Instagram for the latest up-to-date spreads and picks. If something happens, if all of a sudden CJ Stroud shows up on a Friday injury report with a knee, we are going to shift and we're going to pivot. So you got to make sure you're paying attention to those handles. But Pez, what are your final thoughts on the weekend coming up?
Jeff, we got baseball too, right? So, today we've got Kansas City going. Last I checked, it was 0-0 to end the season. We'll talk about it next week. These 3-game series, I don't know about, Jeff. There's something very un-American about one team getting 3 home games. What happened here? You make the playoffs and the other team gets 3 home games? It's unheard of, Jeff. This is un-American. I don't know. Is Bud Selig still the commissioner? I got to contact somebody, Jeff. But
I think he's dead.
I think he's been dead about 30 years. So, Jeff, we're going to ride this, though. And, last night, first night of this, we had 3 out of 4 road teams win. I think today, every gambler in America is taking the home team. I don't think it's going to play out like that, Jeff. I think 2-game series. Now you're behind the 8 ball. I think today we could see teams throwing out starters for an inning or two. You get through this second game, especially as a road team, you got nothing to lose, right? You want to win today. I love Kansas City, and if not, tomorrow's games are going to be crazy. So Saturday, Jeff, I'll be at the Phillies game. Big night there. We'll be with the Sling Man. We'll be with the 5th-string punter from JMU from 20 years ago. Parlay Legs will be there, Jeff. So he wants to come on the show at some point soon. He's lost every parlay already all year. So big night for us there. Big Phil's win. I'm watching the wind, Jeff, at that stadium. If the wind's blowing off I-95 off the old Naval Shipyard, balls just sail out of there, and we know the Phillies, all they can do is hit home runs. So we're pumped for whoever they're playing. That'll be a big 4:00 game, Jeff. We'll be coming out. We'll do a little live spot, Jeff. I don't know.
Nice.
We'll talk to our social media guy, Darren, see if he can set that up for us.
All right, I love it. All right, Pez, as always, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. We will talk next week. Enjoy the games.
All right, let's go.